Hello, it's just me uh, talking about stuff this week. So, um, some of you may have heard the story of Pope Leo the XII. Pope Leo the XII was known as an opponent of vaccination. Apparently, he said, whoever allows himself to be vaccinated ceases to be a child of God. Smallpox is a judgment of God. The vaccination is a challenge towards heaven. So, there he was talking about the vaccination widely available from 1796 against smallpox, that deadly disease which was eradicated or has been more or less eradicated by that vaccination program. The idea that Pope Leo was the sort of anti-vax pope, now comes the shock if you've heard this story, is a complete fabrication. It's a complete lie. There's nothing in it at all. He never said such thing. It was made up afterwards. There never has been an anti-vaccination pope. Quite the opposite, in fact. Campaigns for health and vaccination with the Catholic Church and indeed with other Christians, I'm just using the Catholic Church as an example, went kind of hand in hand. The Jesuits, indeed, in South America, pioneered some of the earliest smallpox vaccines as early as 1720. They're very much behind it. And 1757, Pope Benedict himself was vaccinated against smallpox. In 1821, there was a council about vaccinations. And generally at that time, it was actually the clergy working hand in hand with the medical authorities who actually promoted the huge sort of vaccination programs at the beginning of the 19th century that transformed, the sort of public health life. And indeed, more recently, Pope Francis has been promoting a vaccination in some of the poorest areas of South America. So it's a very important thing to remember that sort of anti-vax pope thing is a lie. In fact, the another quote which comes from Pope Pius VII, a precious discovery. He's talking about the smallpox vaccine, a precious discovery which ought to be a new motive for human gratitude to omnipotence. So, fairly conclusive evidence there that Christianity and vaccination have gone hand in hand. Of course, I say this because the news in the last few days, I think the very hopeful news is that the results look very promising for the vaccine that's developed for COVID-19. Now, of course, we need to be cautious, and part of that caution is saying that, of course, the upscaling, the manufacturing, the distribution of that to basically the entire world is not something that can be achieved overnight. It's going to take weeks, months, starting with the most vulnerable people, and then moving to wider populations. So there is still a way to go yet, but those initial results are very good and encouraging, and for that, thanks be to God. So I just want to say a little bit about, without being too kind of vitriolic or whatever, I want to say a little bit about those who are dubious about vaccines. And I want to think about my sermon on Sunday, which you will no doubt have tuned into. If not, you should do. But it's about risk. Because actually, it's Jesus' parable of the talents, which of course is about risk. It's about three slaves, one of whom, puts the money into a sort of high risk investment thing and gets lots of money back, and the other one who just buries it in the ground safely, thinking, at least I've got there, and doesn't take any risks and is reprimanded by the landlord because of it. And as I say in that sermon, we're very bad at assessing risk, and we often want to be told about something, there is no risk at all. And I'm afraid in life you just can't say that. Now, I'm not an expert on the pharmaceutical industry, but my understanding is that, particularly after sort of tragic events of thalidomide, um, that industry has been very, very cautious about introducing new medicines and new vaccines, and that whilst there is a risk associated with anything in life, actually the procedures now we have for you know this vaccine, any other vaccine, any new medicine are really, really stringent. It always, and I think I've heard it said that you know, aspirin would never be licensed now. It's just because the risks associated with it are are too high. And yet, of course, aspirin is a fantastic drug. Don't stop taking aspirin. It's just that thing of being able to assess risk correctly. And as I say, I think that is something Christians need to be good at. Jesus does say, again, let's come back to someone, if you're going to build a tower, sit down and assess what it's going to cost you. Everything in life comes with a sense of risk. As I say, we want to be told there is no risk in these things, and it just isn't possible. Every action in life has a risk associated with it. That's not just sort of medical procedures, it's crossing the road, going out for a journey, eating a meal. Everything there's a risk. But of course, there's far more benefit to be gained from these things. It's not about taking silly risks. It's not about taking, nonsensible risks, but it's about looking at benefits and risks and weighing them up. And I say we're very bad at doing it. We hear somebody's flying across the Atlantic, and we say, well, we'll collect you from the airport. Hope your flight is safe. Not realizing that, of course, our trip around the M25 to Heathrow is going to be much more risky than any flight across the Atlantic. So I'm really positive about this vaccine, and I am slightly disheartened to, something I see on social media is, would you take it? And yeah, some of the sort of there's some more fanciful theories out there, that they're it's just a way to inject little microprocessors to control our brains or something. Well, that just belongs to sort of loony land, frankly. But I hope people will understand that when people talk about risks, they are talking sensibly, and that the overwhelming benefits of really all vaccination programs, practically, going back to smallpox. When you think about smallpox, polio, the MMR vaccines, all those different vaccines, the overwhelming benefit they have brought to human society and civilization. And frankly, there is no reason to think that the COVID-19 vaccine will be any more of a benefit to human civilization than any of those. It is up there with those great steps forward. So I hope that we as Christians will kind of understand that everything in life has a risk, but we'll be really behind the progress that's being made, and indeed thank God for it. It's very important that Christians and scientists work together, are seen to work on the same page for the improvement of civilization, because that's we're both aiming for that. We're both capable of bringing great things to human civilization. It'd be awful to be felt that we were kind of somehow against one another. We walk hand in hand with the scientists as they produce this and as they try to do their best for human flourishing. The odd thing about that, I always think about that supposing anti-vax thing is this idea that somehow suffering or illness is a judgment of God. I mean, it's just nonsense. it is quite clear in Christianity. You know, Jesus comes and says, "This is what I want you to be like." And what does Jesus do? He spends his time healing. You know, he never strikes somebody down with something to show them that God's displeased. He never does that. And if Christ is the center of life, he heals. And the whole of Christian history is about Christians being involved in healing. So it's very important that is our only response. Our only response to human suffering as Christians is to seek healing. There is absolutely no reason to do anything else at all. And that's why, as I say, I'm for health and for healing. And I'm very much pleased that this vaccine has arrived. I hope the results continue to be as good, and I hope as quickly as possible it is spread throughout humanity for its betterment. Thank you.